Hey everybody, Dan here with Pain Free You. Today's topic is going to be, hello Finn. Today's topic is going to be the difference between pain and suffering. So, this kind of comes up because I see a lot of conversation that there's a lot of people out there really suffering. I just wanted to kind of cover this topic. Before I do, due to overwhelming response, the breathing is in. I think I had one person say we can skip the breathing, and at least 50 or so people said, keep it in, we love it. So, that being said, breathe in the peace. Exhale the noise. Breathe in the courage. Exhale the fear. Breathe in the certainty that this is TMS. Exhale the doubt. All right, so what's the difference between pain and suffering? Pain is the sensation we feel in our body. I believe suffering is our response to it. And I'm not suggesting that any type of pain or discomfort or symptom, whether it be burning, tingling, numbness, weakness, gastrointestinal problems, autoimmune issues, anxiety, depression, these things are absolutely painful. The key is, how do we respond to it? And the way we choose to respond to these things is where I believe, and I could be wrong, and I'm open to debate, but how we choose to respond to these things is where the suffering comes in, right? There are an infinite number of ways to respond to physical pain. The initial response, immediate, ouch. But as it relates to chronic pain, I think this suffering comes into play when we start to look into our future with very little hope of change. When we look into our future and say, and I was this way, wow, if I feel this bad in my 30s, what am I going to be like at 60? Am I going to be in a wheelchair? Am I going to be able to lead a normal life? And so I believe it's our thinking about the pain and what it means for our current life and future life, that's where the suffering comes into play. I believe that holds true for anxiety. I believe it holds true for depression as well. You've probably heard me say it, but depression, in my opinion, is sadness plus hopelessness, meaning no hope for a change, no hope for a better outcome. And so, that's why I keep coming back to this TMS stuff, the mind-body stuff. Too much stress. I believe anybody can get better, significantly better, if not completely better. I was able to overcome 13 years of chronic back pain and nerve pain down one or both legs, which the doctors call sciatica. In fact, it was TMS all along. I had muscle spasms so bad that I was stuck on the floor. I spent more hours laying on my back looking up at the floor, letting my body decompress into the floor. And for a lot of my 13 years, I was suffering, not because of the physical pain, but because of the mental anguish that came with it. And what I'm starting to see as I get the blessed opportunity to interact with so many people is that recovery kind of goes in two major steps. First major step is, a few major steps, not just two. First is the awareness, like, oh wow, maybe I'm not physically broken. Light bulb goes off, right? And what enters? A little bit of hope. What happens to the fear? Maybe notches down a little bit. But then we start diving into this TMS world, and it seems overly complex and very mystical as to how to do this healing thing. And if it's this repressed emotions and it's repressed, how am I supposed to find these emotions if I don't even know they exist? And it can very quickly become overly complex. which is why I love to really do everything I can to understand how the system works and simplify it in a way that makes it very accessible to you. I just gotta stop that phone from ringing. Sorry about that. Didn't want that to disturb. So, I really seek to simplify this information. Sarno simplified, if you will. But I take it beyond Sarno. I get into the whole brain science stuff, neuroplasticity, how the brain works, the purpose of pain. I've taken what I've learned about pain science and really just tried to incorporate it into, well, if this is how the system works, then how do we work with the system to get it to shut off the pain? Because inevitably, the core message of TMS, this mind-body syndrome, this neural circuit pain, is that there's nothing actually broken. You're not broken physically. And I'm here to tell you you're not broken mentally or emotionally either. And so, it's how we think about the pain that creates, in my opinion, the suffering. And I know there's going to be some people out there whose pain is really kicking their butt, who are going to say, screw you, Dan, I'm not doing this. I can't help it. It hurts so bad. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. When the pain is that awful, sometimes it's a matter of survival. I get it. But please, please look at the optimistic side, which is you're on the right track. If you've done the assessments and it indicates this is TMS, which in my opinion most chronic pain is, the vast majority, I truly believe that that's what's going on with the vast majority of chronic pain. And TMS has a very classic definition of repressed emotions, a distraction from them, the classic Sarno stuff. But I believe that most chronic pain has been learned. We have pain come on and onset for a certain reason, whether it be the classic TMS thing, the emotional overwhelm and the need to distract us from it. Could be a reaction in our nervous system, a central sensitization. How it begins almost doesn't matter, because if you're several years into a chronic pain, how it started almost doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, it's most likely that through neuroplasticity, your brain has learned to keep those connections going, expects the pain, and deliver the pain. And so, if you can learn to keep the pain going long after any true injury has healed, or after the original intent of the pain, the danger signals that turned it on in the first place, if you can teach the brain that those things are no longer happening and you are indeed safe in your body, your thoughts, your emotions, we should be able to unlearn the pain. I absolutely believe sincerely that fear and attention are the two things that make the original onset of TMS or of any type of pain chronic and persistent. We get sucked into the medical system. We get told we're broken. Nobody can fix us. Nothing seems to help. The fear escalates. The anxiety escalates. The catastrophic thinking escalates. And before you know it, we're deep into the suffering side of it. And I guess what I'd like to do is just suggest that the awareness of TMS helps. The next step is to learn more about how to fix it. And that's what I do every day. I teach this stuff, putting out at least an hour of content every single week, 7 daily videos a week. I've been doing it for almost 2 years. As a matter of fact, in March, it'll be 2 years straight without missing a day. Has to be at least 150 to 170 hours worth of content that I put out. And the core message is, you're not broken. You are not broken. And when you start to see the glimmer of hope and the possibility, then what happens? The fear starts to turn down. And when you start taking away one of the fuel sources for this chronic pain, life gets a lot easier, because then we don't have to stare at it all the time. So remove the fear, remove the attention that you're giving it, and the symptoms can fade away. Why? Because we're not using those neural circuits, because we're not paying attention to, monitoring, managing, being desperate to heal. And so I know it's counterintuitive, because a lot of people say, well, I haven't gotten better yet. I need to try harder. I need to do more. And so that's not the answer. Sometimes the answer is when we do less, when we care less, when we focus on it less. If 20 minutes of focused TMS-based work is not getting the job done, doubling and tripling down and doing 40 minutes to an hour to 3 hours to listening to podcasts all day, watching all the videos and everything else is not going to necessarily teach your brain to let go of these neural connections, because you are basically instructing the brain that the pain's the most important thing in your day, because it's all you're thinking about and focused on. So if we want the brain to forget it and let it go, let's shift our attention. And I know people will say, but Dan, I don't have a life. My pain and my symptoms have been so all-consuming that I don't have a life. I will suggest, maybe it's time to start dreaming and scheming and planning a new life for yourself, so you've got something to look forward to. Because I can guarantee it, folks, when you implement this stuff, the symptoms will fade away. Your body knows what to do to return balance. Your nervous system doesn't like being, turned up to volume 10. It likes operating at a base level. And our brain doesn't like being scared either. It's just operating based on misinformation, all this bad, scary data. So the difference between pain and suffering is pain is a physical sensation. It is not pleasant. But when you combine the physical pain with optimism that it's temporary, that you know exactly what's going on, that you're on the right track to turn it off, all of a sudden you're not suffering as much. So what you're going to notice, and I see the comments all the time, people are like, hey Dan, you know what? I still have the pain, but I'm feeling so much better, so much more optimistic. I'm getting out and I'm living my life a little bit more. Yeah, the pain hasn't gone away yet. That's a key phrase. But wow, I'm actually starting to take my life back and start to do things and starting to have some fun again. Which to me is evidence that they've turned down the fear and they're shifting their focus and their attention away from it, which means the pain is surely to go. So if you're feeling less anxious, less afraid, you're on the right track. You're halfway there. Or however far. But that's a good thing. And that is often the first step towards recovery, which is the reduction in fear and the return of optimism and a shift back to your life as opposed to your pain being your life. So I hope this makes sense. I don't mean to diminish anybody's pain or suffering. I just want to clarify. I think there's a difference. Pain is the physical sensation. Suffering is how we respond to it and think about it. Because if all we're doing all day long is thinking about how awful our life is and how it's never going to change and how you're never going to get out of this, and I'm not strong enough, I'm too anxious, I've always been anxious, I've got this working against me, that working against me, I'm never going to get better, that's the suffering. The physical sensation is just the physical sensation. So as we learn to calm down our thinking by not believing and buying into all of these negative, fearful, anxious, future-based, horrible life thoughts, and saying no and reminding ourselves and reassuring ourselves it's temporary. That's not my future life. The suffering comes down. And when the suffering comes down, the fear is lowered significantly. And again, the fear is one of the main fuel sources for chronic symptoms. When you turn that down, you'll be able to shift your attention back to living life. And attention, is the other fuel source for it. So literally, when you turn down the fear and you shift your attention away from the symptoms, the brain gets the message, this is not important, and it can start to fade away. So I hope this makes sense to you guys and gals. Pain versus suffering. You let me know. Do you think there's a difference between the two? Does this actually make sense? And if you're starting to feel more hopeful and less fearful, you're on your way. You may still have the symptoms, but that's okay. Stay on track. You're absolutely going in the right direction. If you keep on going, you're going to come out of the woods into the bright sunlight, and you're going to feel great. So, love you guys and gals. Let me know what you think about this, and we will talk to you soon.